day, the new year. And so this is my first time doing morning manna this year, as I've been out of it for a little while. Most of our family, actually all of our family, has been down with COVID. So we are on the mend. I'm almost back to normal. So thank you for your prayers. This is our second time around with COVID. The first time around was really before it came out, and uh, it was still a thing on the international scene, and we had read about it, but it hadn't yet arrived officially in Brazil. But we all got hit with it shortly after some of our outreach events with Carnival in our church that we were involved in there. And when we got it, then I think three, maybe four of us got it. I got it pretty bad. Marla got it, and then the girls just a little bit. But this time, all five of us got it. It wasn't as bad, but all five of us got it, and I was a little surprised with how contagious it was. If you account my extended family, which we've been together for the holidays, my mom and my brothers and my brother's family, 13 out of 13 of us have come down with it. So that was why we weren't at church on Sunday. We did not want to spread it any further. But after church, I did receive a phone call from a friend, and he was just razzing me. And I was explaining, well, I didn't want you to get it, in which he responded, well, that's okay. If I got it and I went to heaven, that'd be fine. And and I knew he was just joking, but the beauty is that there was truth in that. I know that if my friend were to die, I know that he'd be just fine. And what a blessing we have as Christians, not to be afraid of death. I'm not saying there isn't pain and separation that death brings. Most of us have already experienced that. But as Christians, we know that that pain is only temporary, for we know that our eternity is secured. And that brings us a wonderful peace. This is the very thing that Paul was saying when he was writing his letter to the Corinthians church his first time, the 15th chapter, verse 55. He wrote, "O death, where is your sting? O Hades, where is your victory?" You know, the fear of death is a great motivator around the world, and for most of the world, and for most of history. I mean, when you look back at the explorers that came from Europe to the Americas, some came in search for the fountain of youth. They didn't want to die. And that was 500 years ago. But even in our day, you have rich moguls who are looking for ways to preserve their lives, either freezing themselves cryogenetically I think I'm saying that correctly, or somehow merging biology with technology as a way to preserve or to extend their lives. The fear of death and annihilation, I mean, it's a pretty big theme in our society and even in our art. As you look at the movies that we watch, the action movies, usually this is a huge motivating factor. But for those of us who know Jesus, we know that death isn't the end. It's just a doorway to a new closeness and a new experience with Jesus. And for those of us in Jesus, we don't have to fear death. And what magnificent freedom that brings us. The writer of Hebrews, in the second chapter, verses 14 and 15, puts it this way: "Inasmuch as the children have partaken of flesh and blood, he himself likewise shared in the same, that through death he might destroy him who had the power of death, that is, the devil, and through release those who through fear of death were all their lifetime subject to bondage." It's an interesting phrase. Release those through the fear of death who all their lifetime were subject to bondage, a bondage that we as Christians don't have to be subject to. It reminds me of my daughter Noelle. You know, she's a funny one when it comes to fear, in particular, a fear of heights. In the natural world, she does not like them. I mean, if we're hiking or we're going on a bike ride and she's getting close to the edge or close to a cliff or a drop off, it gets her real anxious. I mean, she gets a little bit of the shake. She gets scared. She gets super nervous. She doesn't like it. But the funny thing is, this same girl in an amusement park or a water park, man, she'll go to the tallest, scariest ride, the top of the the tallest water slide. I remember in Brazil, there's the red slide, and it was the top. I mean, it was the one that kind of dropped down and went like this, and people would get to the go up there and look over the edge and back down. But even as a little kid, she wouldn't. She would go to the edge. She'd sit down on that slide and just go down. She'd have a great time, or even when most adults were backing off. Why? Why would this girl who's scared of heights go down the tallest and be excited to go down the tallest water slide over and over and over? Because she knew it was safe. She knew it was tested. She knew she wasn't going to die. In the water park or an amusement park, the fear, she wasn't dominated by fear. Not the fear of death or the fear of heights. Jesus said that God knows the number of hairs on our head. The psalmist in Psalm 139 said that God knows the number of our days, that he ordained them even before one of them came to pass. So as Christians, we don't have to be afraid of death the way that the world is afraid of death. In fact, as our day draws closer, we have the hope of heaven. And may we live our lives so that we can say, as Paul said, in the last chapter of his last letter to his son in the faith, Timothy, in 2 Timothy 4:6-8, he said, "For I'm already being poured out like a drink offering, and the time of my departure is near. I fought the good fight and I finished the race. Now I have kept the faith, and I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award me on that day." And he goes on to say, not only me, but to all those who have longed for his appearing. Now, I'm not denying that this world is a dangerous place, but we don't have to be dominated by the fear of what the world fears. Because as Christians, our future is secure. As Christians, death isn't our end, but a doorway into a new life made possible by Jesus. And knowing that God knows even the days, the number of our days, means we can walk confidently in faith, even as the rest of the world runs from fear to fear. So may we be blessed in this day, in this new year, and knowing that God has our days in his hands.